Forget everything you thought you knew about historical battles. The Paris Commune wasn't just a footnote in history. It was a devastating urban siege whose tactics and consequences echo in conflicts happening right now. Prepare to see how the lessons learned from this 19th century uprising are surprisingly applicable to modern warfare, proving that history is never truly in the past. Paris, 1871. The city is a shadow of its former self. Once the glittering heart of Europe, Paris now bears the scars of war and defeat. The Franco-Prussian War has just ended, and with it, the reign of Napoleon III. The emperor's dreams of glory have crumbled, leaving behind a city full of anger, hunger, and uncertainty. Let us step back for a moment and imagine the city as it was just a few years before. Paris had been transformed by Napoleon III and his chief architect, Baron Haussmann. Wide boulevards cut through the old medieval neighborhoods, grand buildings rose up, and the city became a symbol of modernity and imperial power. But beneath the surface, not everyone benefited from this transformation. The working class crowded into cramped apartments and struggling to make ends meet, watched as the wealthy enjoyed the fruits of progress. For the poor and working people of Paris, life was a daily struggle. Wages were low, hours were long, and the cost of living kept rising. The city's poor watched as the wealthy continued their lives of comfort, seemingly untouched by the suffering all around them. Social inequality was everywhere, and resentment simmered just below the surface. In the smoky back rooms of Parisian, in crowded tenements and bustling markets, people talked of change. Radical ideas about workers' rights, democracy, and revolution were whispered from ear to ear. The city was alive with debate, but also with fear. The government's police kept a close watch, and the threat of arrest was never far away. But the real turning point came with the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War in 1870. Napoleon III, desperate to shore up his regime and restore France's prestige, declared war on Prussia. It was a gamble and it failed spectacularly. The French army, poorly led and ill-prepared, was no match for the disciplined Prussian forces. In a matter of months, the French suffered defeat after defeat. The final humiliation came at Sedan, where Napoleon III himself was captured and his army surrendered. The empire collapsed almost overnight. In Paris, crowds filled the streets demanding a new government. The Third Republic was proclaimed, but it was a government born in crisis week, divided, and facing an impossible situation. The Prussian army was closing in, and Paris was about to become the center of a new and desperate struggle. City scarred, the aftermath of the Franco-Prussian War and Napoleon III's downfall as the Prussian army advanced. The government retreated to the safety of Tours, then Bordeaux, and finally Versailles. Paris was left to fend for itself. The city was surrounded, cut off from the rest of France. The siege began in September 1870, and it would last for more than 4 long, bitter months. Inside the city, the mood was grim but defiant. The National Guard, made up mostly of workers, artisans, and small shopkeepers, took up arms to defend their neighborhoods. They built barricades, dug trenches, and prepared for a fight. The regular army was demoralized, and many soldiers deserted or joined the National Guard. Food supplies quickly dwindled. Bread was rationed, and soon even that was scarce. Parisians ate whatever they could find: dogs, cats, rats, and even the animals from the city's famous zoo. Hunger gnawed at everyone, rich and poor alike, but the suffering didn't break the city's spirit. If anything, it made Parisians more determined to resist. The city's defenses were improvised but fierce. The National Guard manned the barricades, and the people of Paris rallied to their cause. The government, meanwhile, was divided. Some wanted to negotiate with the Prussians, hoping to end the suffering. Others insisted on fighting to the bitter end. This division would prove fatal. The government, led by Adolphe Thiers, eventually decided to surrender. In January 1871, after months of starvation and bombardment, Paris capitulated. The Prussians marched in, and the city's humiliation was complete. Seeds of discontent, growing social inequality and working-class frustration, but the story doesn't end there. In fact, the real drama was just beginning. The surrender was a bitter pill for the people of Paris, especially the working class. They felt betrayed by their own government, which they saw as cowardly and out of touch. The National Guard, which had defended the city, refused to lay down their arms. tensions between the government and the people reached a boiling point. The government's decision to surrender to the Prussians was seen as a betrayal. The people of Paris had endured months of hunger and hardship, only to be abandoned by their leaders. The National Guard, which had become a symbol of popular resistance, refused to disarm. Many Parisians believed that the government in Versailles was more interested in restoring order and protecting the interests of the wealthy than in defending the city or its people. In March 1871, the spark finally ignited the powder keg. When government troops tried to seize the National Guard's cannons in the working-class neighborhood of Montmartre, the people rose up. Barricades went up across the city, and the government fled to Versailles, leaving Paris in the hands of its own citizens. The Paris Commune was born a radical experiment in self-government, run by workers, for workers. For 72 days, Paris was a city in revolt, a beacon of hope for revolutionaries around the world. But the government in Versailles was determined to crush the uprising, no matter the cost. The Prussian shadow, Paris under siege, and the government's controversial surrender. The Prussian army, meanwhile, remained a constant threat. Even after the official surrender, their presence loomed over the city. The government in Versailles, now led by Adolphe Thiers, was determined to restore order and crush the Commune. The stage was set for a brutal confrontation. People of Paris, exhausted but defiant, prepared to defend their city once again. The barricades went up, the red flag flew over City Hall, and the dream of a new society flickered to life. The world watched in fascination and fear as Paris embarked on its boldest experiment yet. As the government in Versailles plotted its return, and the people of Paris seized control of their own destiny, the city stood on the brink of a radical transformation. What would happen when ordinary citizens took the reins of power? The answer would change the course of history. Birth of a radical experiment. The Commune takes hold the morning of March 18, 1871. Dawned cold and tense. Paris was a city on edge. The government, now based in Versailles, had ordered troops to seize the National Guard's cannons, which were stored on the heights of Montmartre. These cannons weren't just weapons, they were symbols of the people's resistance, paid for by public donations during the Prussian siege. When government soldiers tried to take them, the people of Montmartre, led by women and children, rushed to defend their neighborhood. The soldiers, many of whom were themselves Parisians, hesitated. Some refused to fire on the crowd. Others joined the people. The government's plan collapsed in confusion. By midday, the city was in open revolt. Barricades sprang up in the streets, and the red flag of revolution was raised over City Hall. The government's officials and loyal troops fled to Versailles, leaving Paris in the hands of its own citizens. For the first time in history, a major European capital was run by its own people. The Paris Commune was born. From barricades to ballots, how Parisian citizens seized control, the first days of the Commune were chaotic but full of hope. The National Guard, now the city's main defense force, called for elections to form a new government. This was not a coup by a small group of radicals. It was a mass movement, with broad support from workers, artisans, and even some middle-class Parisians. On March 26th, Parisians went to the polls. For many, it was the first time they had a real say in their city's future. Each of Paris's 20 arrondissements elected representatives to a new council, the Commune. The council was a mix of socialists, anarchists, radical Republicans, and working-class leaders. Most were ordinary people, factory workers, teachers, journalists, and artisans, rather than professional politicians. The Commune's first act was to declare itself the legitimate government of Paris. It promised to defend the city, to protect the rights of its citizens, and create a new, more just society. The mood in Paris was electric. For the first time, the people felt they truly owned their city. A new vision for society, radical reforms and democratic aspirations. The Paris Commune wasted no time in making changes. In just a few weeks, it introduced a wave of reforms that shocked the world and inspired generations of revolutionaries. Separation of church and state, the Commune declared that religion was a private matter. Churches were no longer funded by the government, and religious symbols were removed from schools. This was a bold move in a country where the Catholic Church had long held great power. Workers' rights. Factories abandoned by their owners during the siege were handed over to workers' cooperatives. The Commune encouraged workers to manage businesses democratically, sharing profits and responsibilities. Education for all. The Commune opened free, secular schools for boys and girls, aiming to give every child a chance regardless of background. Teachers were paid better, and education was seen as a right, not a privilege. Women's rights. While women still couldn't vote, they played a crucial role in the Commune. Women's clubs organized food distribution, nursed the wounded, and even fought on the barricades. The Commune recognized the right of women to divorce and pushed for equal pay. Abolition of night work for bakers. This small but symbolic reform showed the Commune as concerned for the daily lives of workers, ending the practice of forcing bakers to work through the night. The Commune also abolished conscription in the standing army, placing it with the National Guard, in which all able-bodied citizens could serve. Officials were paid no more than the average worker, and they could be recalled by voters at any time. The Commune's leaders wanted to create a government that was truly accountable to the people. Daily life under the Commune. What it was like to live in a self-governing city. Life in Paris during the Commune was a mix of hardship and hope. The city was still under threat from the government in Versailles, and food remained scarce. But there was a new sense of community and purpose. Community spirit. Neighbors helped each other, sharing what little they had. Public kitchens fed the hungry, and the National Guard kept order, not as an occupying force, but as fellow citizens. Art and culture. Despite the hardships, Paris's artists and writers threw themselves into the revolution. Posters, songs, and paintings celebrated the Commune's ideals. Theaters reopened, and debates raged in cafes late into the night. Political engagement. Everyday Parisians gathered in public squares to discuss the latest news, argue about policies, and hold their leaders accountable. The city was a living experiment in democracy. But life was far from easy. The government in Versailles was determined to crush the Commune. Every day, the threat of attack grew closer. Still, the people of Paris held on to their dream, determined to defend their city and their new way of life. The world watches and waits. News of the Commune spread quickly across Europe and beyond. Some saw it as a beacon of hope, a glimpse of a better future. Others saw it as a dangerous threat that had to be destroyed. The fate of Paris hung in the balance. In London, Karl Marx followed events closely, calling the Commune the glorious harbinger of a new society. In Berlin, the German government watched with alarm, fearing the spread of revolution. Even in the United States, newspapers reported on the Commune's bold experiments and the drama unfolding in the streets of Paris. The Commune's challenges. Despite its ideals, the Commune faced enormous challenges. The city was still recovering from the Prussian siege. Food and fuel were scarce, and many families were separated or grieving lost loved ones. The Commune's leaders, though passionate, often disagreed on strategy and priorities. Some wanted to push for even more radical reforms, while others urged caution. The biggest threat, however, came from outside the city. The government in Versailles, led by Adolphe Thiers, was determined to retake Paris. Thiers began gathering troops, many of them released from Prussian captivity and prepared for a military assault. The Commune tried to rally support from other French cities, but most remained loyal to Versailles or were too exhausted to rise up. The calm before the storm. For a few short weeks, Paris lived in a strange peace. The city was self-governing, full of debate and creativity, but always under the shadow of looming violence. The people of Paris knew that the government would not let their experiment continue forever. Still, they hoped that their example might inspire others, or that a negotiated peace could be reached. The Paris Commune was a bold experiment, a moment when the impossible seemed possible. For 72 days, the people of Paris tried to build a new world. But outside the city, the forces of the old order were gathering, ready to strike. As the days passed, and the threat from Versailles grew ever closer, the people of Paris prepared for the fight of their lives. The dream of the Commune was about to be tested in the crucible of war. A city under siege, the bloody week, the spring of 1871, brought a tense and easy calm to Paris. The city's experiment in self-government continued, but everyone knew it couldn't last. Outside the city walls, the government in Versailles was gathering its strength. Adolphe Thiers, the determined and calculating head of the French government, was preparing to strike. For weeks, Thiers had been quietly rebuilding his army. Many of his soldiers were veterans, recently released from Prussian captivity. Others were new recruits, eager to prove themselves. Thiers was determined to crush the Commune and restore order, no matter the cost. He knew that the world was watching, and he wanted to send a clear message. Rebellion would not be tolerated. By mid-May, the Versailles army was ready. The government's forces outnumbered the Communards by more than 2-1, and they were better armed and supplied. The people of Paris, for all their courage, faced a grim reality. They were about to be attacked by their own countrymen. The Versailles counterattack. Adolphe Thiers' army closes in on May 21, 1871. Versailles made their move. Under cover of darkness, government troops slipped through a poorly defended gate in the city's western wall. By morning, they had established a foothold inside Paris. The Communards were caught off guard. The city's defenses, so strong during the Prussian siege, were now stretched thin. Many National Guard units were exhausted, and some neighborhoods were barely defended at all. The attack was swift and brutal. The Versailles advanced street by street, block by block, using overwhelming force. Artillery pounded the barricades, and snipers picked off defenders from rooftops. The Communards fought back fiercely, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. Ordinary citizens joined the fight, building new barricades from paving stones, furniture, and anything else they could find. The city became a battlefield. Every street, every intersection was contested. The sound of gunfire echoed day and night. The air was thick with smoke and fear. For the people of Paris, there was no escape, only the desperate hope that they could hold out a little longer. Street-by-street combat, desperate defense, and brutal reprisals. The fighting was unlike anything Paris had ever seen. The Versailles advanced methodically, clearing each neighborhood before moving on to the next. The Communards, knowing they had little chance of victory, fought with the courage of the desperate. They set up barricades at every major intersection, turning the city's wide boulevards into killing fields. Women and children played a crucial role. Some fought on the barricades, others cared for the wounded or carried food and ammunition. The city's churches, schools, and even private homes became field hospitals. The sense of solidarity that had defined the Commune was now a matter of survival. But the Versailles were relentless. As they advanced, they took no prisoners. Suspected Communards were executed on the spot. Anyone found with a weapon, or even suspected of helping the defenders, faced summary execution. The Seine ran red with blood as the government's troops carried out mass shootings along its banks. The brutality shocked even some of the Versailles officers. But Thiers had given clear orders. The Commune must be destroyed, and Paris must be made an example. The government's message was simple. There would be no mercy for rebels. It's the burning of Paris. Iconic landmarks ablaze amidst the chaos. As the fighting reached its peak, Paris was transformed into a city of fire. In a desperate act of defiance, some Communards set fire to government buildings and symbols of the old regime. The Tuileries Palace, the Hôtel de Ville City Hall, the Palais de Justice, and other landmarks were engulfed in flames. The sky over Paris glowed red as the fires raged out of control. The burning of Paris was both a tragedy and a symbol. For the Communards, it was a final act of resistance, refusal to let the city fall quietly back into the hands of those they saw as oppressors. For the Versailles, it was proof of the Commune's madness and destructiveness. The truth, as always, was more complicated. Some fires were set by retreating Communards, others by shelling from government artillery. In the chaos, it was impossible to know who was responsible for every blaze. The destruction was immense. Priceless works of art, centuries-old archives, and irreplaceable buildings were lost forever. The heart of Paris was scarred, both physically and emotionally. The city that had once been the pride of Europe was now a symbol of civil war and devastation. The final stand by the end of May, the Commune was finished. The last defenders made their stand in the working-class neighborhoods of Belleville, and here the fighting was at its most desperate. Barricades were defended to the last bullet, and many Communards chose death over surrender. The Versailles showed no mercy. Thousands were executed in the streets or after summary trials. Prisons overflowed with survivors, many of whom would be deported to distant colonies or spend years in forced labor camps. The Bloody Week, as it came to be known. left an estimated 20,000 communards, dead, a staggering toll for a city already battered by war and hunger. The aftermath. A city in mourning when the smoke finally cleared. Paris was a city transformed. The grand experiment of the Commune was over, crushed by overwhelming force. The survivors faced a harsh new reality. Many families were left without fathers, mothers, or children. The city's working class, which had dared to dream of a better world, was left to pick up the pieces. The government in Versailles declared victory, but it was a victory won at a terrible cost. The scars of the bloody week would linger for generations. The memory of the Commune, its hopes, its failures, and its brutal suppression became a rallying cry for future movements for justice and equality. The world reacts. News of the bloody week spread quickly. Across Europe and beyond, people were shocked by the scale of the violence. Some saw the Commune as a warning against revolution. Others saw it as a symbol of courage and sacrifice. In the years that followed, the story of the Paris Commune would inspire workers, socialists, and dreamers around the world. The Commune's legacy was complicated, but its impact was undeniable. The events of the Bloody Week showed the world both the power of ordinary people to shape history and the lengths to which those in power would go to maintain control. As Paris began the long process of recovery, the memory of the Commune refused to fade. The city's wounds would heal, but the questions raised by those 72 days of revolution would echo for decades to come. Legacy and echoes. The Commune's enduring impact, the end of the Paris Commune was not just the end of a rebellion, it was the beginning of a legend. The brutal suppression of the Commune left deep scars on the city and its people. But it also planted seeds that would grow into powerful movements and ideas, shaping the course of history far beyond the streets of Paris. Brutal suppression, the cost in human lives, and the immediate aftermath in the days and weeks following the Bloody Week. The scale of the violence was staggering. Estimates vary, but most historians agree that at least 20,000 communards were killed during the final assault and its aftermath. The Seine, once a symbol of life and beauty, became a silent witness to mass executions. Bodies lined the riverbanks, and the city's cemeteries filled with the dead. The government's reprisals did not end with the fighting. Thousands of suspected communards were rounded up and imprisoned. Shift courts handed out sentences with little regard for justice. Some were executed, others sent to forced labor camps or deported to distant colonies like New Caledonia. Families were torn apart, and entire neighborhoods were left shattered. For the survivors, life was marked by fear and silence. Speaking of the Commune could bring suspicion or arrest. Many who had supported the revolution went into hiding or fled the country. The government worked hard to erase the memory of the Commune, tearing down monuments and banning public commemorations. But the memory could not be so easily erased. Its inspiration for future movements, its influence on socialism, communism, anarchism, while the government tried to bury the Commune's legacy, its story spread far and wide. For many, the Paris Commune became a symbol of hope, a brief, shining moment when ordinary people took control of their own destiny. Its example inspired a new generation of activists, thinkers, and revolutionaries. Karl Marx, watching events from London, called the Commune the glorious harbinger of a new society. He saw in it the first real attempt by the working class to seize power and govern themselves. The lessons of the Commune would shape his later writings, especially the Civil War in France, which became a foundational text for socialist and communist movements. The Commune also inspired anarchists, who admired its rejection of centralized authority and its emphasis on local direct democracy. Figures like Peter Kropotkin and Mikhail Bakunin saw the Paris Commune as proof that people could organize themselves without kings, bosses, or bureaucrats. Across Europe and beyond, the red flag of the Commune became a symbol of resistance. Workers in Germany, Russia, Spain, and even the United States looked to Paris for inspiration. The idea that ordinary people could rise up, take control, and build a new society became a rallying cry for labor movements, socialist parties, and revolutionaries for generations to come. The Commune's influence was not just political, it was cultural. Writers, artists, and musicians found inspiration in its ideals and its tragedy. Victor Hugo, who had once criticized the communards, later wrote poems honoring their sacrifice. The memory of the Commune lived on in songs, stories, and art, keeping its spirit alive even in the darkest times. A contested memory. How the Paris Commune is remembered and debated today, the legacy of the Paris Commune is complex and deeply contested. For some, it is a story of heroism and hope, a moment when the people of Paris dared to dream of a better world. For others, it is a cautionary tale of chaos, violence, and the dangers of revolution. In France, the memory of the Commune has been fought over for more than a century. For decades, official history tried to paint the communards as criminals and fanatics. School books described the Commune as a tragic mistake, and public monuments to its leaders were rare. But in working-class neighborhoods, the memory was kept alive through stories, songs, and secret gatherings. Over time, the story of the Commune began to change. In the early 20th century, as socialist and communist parties gained strength, the Commune was reclaimed as a symbol of working-class pride. May Day marches and labor rallies often ended at the Mur des Fidèles wall of the Federates in Lachaise Cemetery, where many communards were executed. The wall became a place of pilgrimage for those who believed in the Commune's ideals. Today, the Paris Commune is remembered in many different ways. For some, it is a source of inspiration, a reminder that ordinary people can make history. For others, it is a warning about the dangers of division and extremism. Historians continue to debate its meaning. Was it a failed revolution, a utopian experiment, or the first glimpse of a new kind of democracy? The Commune's legacy can be seen in the struggles for workers' rights, women's rights, and social justice around the world. Its red flag still flies at protests and rallies, a symbol of hope and defiance. The questions it raised about power, justice, and the right to self-government are as relevant today as they were in 1871. The Commune's lessons for today. The story of the Paris Commune is not just a chapter in a history book, it is a living memory, a source of debate, and a call to action. It reminds us that history is made by ordinary people, often at great cost. It shows us the power of solidarity, the dangers of repression, and the enduring hope for a better world. The Commune's experiment in democracy was brief, but its impact was lasting. It challenged the old order and inspired new visions of what society could be. Its failures and its triumphs continue to teach us about the possibilities and limits of revolution. The enduring spirit of Paris? As you walk through Paris today, you can still find traces of the Commune. The wide boulevards and grand buildings bear silent witness to the battles fought in their shadows. The wall of the Federates stands as a reminder of sacrifice and hope. And in the hearts of those who believe in justice and equality, the spirit of the Commune lives on. The Paris Commune was crushed, but it was never truly defeated. Its memory endures in songs, in stories, and in the dreams of those who dare to imagine a better world. The Paris Commune's memory endures in songs, in stories, and in the dreams of those who dare to imagine a better world. But beyond the history and the heartbreak, what can we learn from those 72 days when ordinary Parisians tried to remake their city and their future? Lessons from the barricades. What the Commune teaches us. The story of the Paris Commune is more than a tale of revolution and repression. It's a living lesson about the power of people, the risks of radical change, and the ongoing struggle for justice and democracy. As we look back on those dramatic weeks in 1871, 3 lessons stand out, lessons that still resonate in our world today. The power of popular uprising. When ordinary citizens challenge authority, the first lesson is the incredible power that ordinary people can wield when they come together. The Paris Commune was not the work of a single leader or a small group of conspirators. It was a mass movement, born from the frustrations, hopes, and dreams of thousands of Parisians, workers, artisans, teachers, mothers, and children. When the government abandoned Paris, it was the people who stepped up. They organized elections, formed councils, and defended their neighborhoods. They debated, disagreed, and sometimes made mistakes. But they proved that democracy is not just a word, it's a practice, built day by day, decision by decision. The Commune showed that when people believe in a cause, they can achieve the extraordinary. They can challenge the most powerful institutions, rewrite the rules, and inspire others around the world. The barricades of Paris became a symbol of resistance, a reminder that even the most entrenched authority can be shaken by the will of the people. But the Commune also reminds us that such uprisings are not easy. They require courage, sacrifice, and a willingness to face the unknown. The people of Paris paid a heavy price for their defiance, but their example continues to inspire those who fight for justice and freedom. The fragility of revolution, the challenges of sustaining radical change. The second lesson is about the fragility of revolution. The Paris Commune burned bright, but it burned out quickly. The reasons are many: military defeat, internal divisions, lack of outside support, and the overwhelming force of the government in Versailles. Revolutions are not just about seizing power. They are about building something new in the aftermath. The Commune's leaders faced enormous challenges. How to feed a starving city, how to keep order without becoming oppressors, how to balance radical ideals with practical needs. They disagreed on strategy, struggled to communicate, and sometimes lost sight of their common purpose. The lesson here is that change is hard. It's not enough to tear down the old order. You have to build the new one, step by step, with patience and humility. The Commune's failure was not just a result of outside attack. It was also a reminder that revolutions must be prepared for the long haul, ready to adapt and learn from mistakes. Yet, even in failure, the Commune left a legacy. Its brief existence showed what was possible, and its defeat taught future movements the importance of unity, organization, and resilience. Why the Commune still matters today: its relevance to contemporary social and political struggles. The third lesson is perhaps the most important. The Paris Commune still matters. Story is not just a relic of the past, it's a mirror for our own times. All over the world, people continue to rise up against injustice, inequality, and oppression. From the streets of Cairo to the squares of Hong Kong, from labor strikes to climate marches, the spirit of the Commune lives on. The questions the communards faced about democracy, equality, and the right to self-government are still with us. The Commune's experiment in radical democracy, its commitment to social justice, and its willingness to challenge the status quo have inspired generations. Its failures remind us to be humble, to learn from history, and to recognize the dangers of division and repression. But above all, the Commune's story is a testament to hope. Even in the darkest times, people can come together to imagine and fight for a better world. The barricades of Paris may be gone, but the dream they represented endures. The barricades within us. As we reflect on the Paris Commune, we might ask ourselves, what barricades do we face today? What injustices demand our attention? What kind of society do we want to build? The answers are not easy, and the path is never straight. But the lesson of the Commune is clear. Change is possible, and it begins with ordinary people daring to act. The enduring echo, the Paris Commune, was crushed, but it was never truly silenced. Its memory lives on in the struggles for workers' rights, women's rights, and social justice. Its red flag still waves at protests and rallies, a symbol of hope and defiance. The Commune's story is a reminder that history is not just about kings and generals. It's about all of us. It's about the choices we make, the risks we take, and the dreams we refuse to abandon. If you found this story of the Paris Commune as powerful and thought-provoking as we have, we invite you to keep the conversation going. What lessons do you take from the Commune? How do you see its echoes in the world today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's forgotten files, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a story. Your support helps us bring more untold histories to light. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the barricades of Paris. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, history is never truly in the past.